dive in and take a look at one of the healthiest metas with another modern tier list. You can see I've got like 40 some decks over here. I've got a couple of the scrolling little thumbnails up at the top for you. That's basically to kind of show off. We've been covering the modern scene for quite a while, and I thought it would be a perfect time to be able to show off and do a capture of what the tier list is. The last time we did this was November of last year in 2025. So I think so, right? That sounds about right. So let's dive in and see how diverse, how the meta has changed since then. There's been some new decks, some resurgence of old decks, and we're in this very particular time right now in Modern where you can essentially win with almost any deck. We've been seeing players go and 5-0 with Devoted Druid combo, with Lantern Control, right? With Living End, with Goryo's Vengeance, with Boros Energy, right? That you can basically play whatever flavor you want, and it's such a diverse format that there really is a very hard time to position yourself to have a sideboard geared to beat all of the decks in Modern right now. So we're going to kind of go through and talk a little bit about it. I've got about 40 some. You can see there I accidentally put a couple duplicates with my boggles here, but that's okay. I got so excited about including boggles. We're trying to include as many decks as possible in it, not just going, hey, here's the top 8 decks. We're trying to show off as much as possible because Modern is so diverse, and really you can win with any deck here. So we're just going to bounce around the best we can. We'll try to pull from basically each row as we go through it and sort of go through and start things off. So why don't we start it off with, let's start with Boros Energy, shall we? Boros Energy was the most played deck at the Pro Tour, but sitting there below 50% win rate, right? It's like 46, 47% win rate. It is very powerful, very strong still. It's trying to keep a lot of decks in check with the speed at which it kind of goes about things. So it is still going to be one of the top dogs in the format of when you're thinking about going to an LGS, playing online, you will run into probably a Boros Energy player. My shop's a little different. We don't have any Boros Energy players currently. Basically, the players that were on it have kind of peeled off to other decks that they've found more enjoyable at this point in time. So, but Boros Energy being kind of the top dog since Modern Horizons 3 was released, it's important to include it in here. But at this point in time, I don't even feel like it's an S tier deck anymore. I feel like there's too much diversity in the format for it to do the best job at policing. It doesn't have a super like explosive OTK element that some of the combo decks have in in Modern right now. There's also a lot of powerful mid-rangey strategies doing like blink stuff with Solitudes and Riddlers and things like that. So it's like it's in this weird moment here that it's like I don't even know if we would consider it an S tier deck anymore. Now, if we're doing it in popularity, maybe we could say it is there, but I don't know. I don't feel like it's S tier anymore. I feel like our A tier has gotten even more deep compared to last time, and our S tier has kind of dried up. But we'll see as we go through it if that is still the case or not, because now let's pull from our first row here and let's go with Living End, shall we? Living End is one of those decks that basically popped up a lot more in the Sultai variants. It was doing quite well as a just sort of blue, black, and green style of deck, and you just sort of like, yep, I'm going to just play these efficient creatures, especially with the release of Lorwyn and the new elemental line that came out, right? Deceit and Wistfulness and all that sort of a new style of playing definitely helped push it up. And then Violent Outburst was unbanned, and people kind of pivoted back into this maybe like 4-color lists and trying out these different styles of playing it and being able to add in like the Oliphants and stuff like that. The ability to cascade at instant speed is really powerful and really good. But graveyard decks are still, fragile in the format. Still a little bit easier when the best removal is Solitude. You can be able to basically say, oh, you're going to bring 2 things back. I'll get rid of your 2 things. right? Solitude, Ephemerate, blinked out, gone. We don't have to worry about your two big things that you've been putting in your yard up to this point. So that it's, puts it a little bit lower down. I still think it's a decent deck. Like I said, we've seen it win with some leagues before, but I would still put it at like a B tier. I don't feel like it is strong enough to compete. If we're basically lowering some of our tier lists now, I feel like this is kind of where we're at. If we don't have that powerful S tier, then that just jumps and drops everything down around it. So looking at our bottom tier row, should we talk about the new hotness? Fight rigging. Let's go and talk fight rigging here. So fight rigging is this cool enchantment. We did a little bit of a breakdown about the Pro Tour if you wanted to see it, but the idea is that you are hiding away here and you need to have a creature with 6 power. You just happen to have a 1-drop that has 6 power, and you're basically cheating Eldrazi into play. The deck is really cool, very powerful. It's explosive. There is a bit of disruption to it. It is one of those kind of glass cannon decks, but I am actually putting this up here in this like high A, low B. I feel like it's going to be pushing it into A this time around, specifically because of just the win percentage that came about with the deck. At the Pro Tour, it had over 50% win rate. Even seeing it online, like there's a lot of ways people are trying to fight over it and deal with it, but I feel like if you're going to play online, it's going to be a deck that you're going to have to deal with and have to try to navigate and manage the best you can there. So A tier for the fight rigging deck there. Let's keep going. Now, of course, if there is a list that I did not include this time around, let me know. We'll try to include it for the next one we do in the fall, end of the year type. We'll try to get at least 2 of these tier lists a year to be added in here. So we've got fight rigging, we got a new deck, we got an old deck. Should we just kind of dive in here and talk a little bit more about some other old decks that I wish were good but are not? Let's see. Let's go with humans here. Let's talk humans. We've seen it on camera a couple of times. The Boros build feels stronger, the little bit more fast and explosive. It is very fragile, though. Like, even if you're just like, you're playing a tap-out deck, and your tap-out deck is all in because you're all on the board, and you have to put your pressure. Like, it's not as strong as, like, the Boros energy style where you're like, yeah, I'm a tap out deck, I'm playing all these creatures, but I have evasion built in here because I'm getting up this energy and I'm able to now give this creature flying and put counters on it, and you can kind of push damage that way. Where the human list is like, yeah, I'm putting counters on this thing, but they're all 1-drops, so you Wrath of Skies me and I've lost my entire board. Or you cast a Living End and I've lost my entire board, right? It's like very much set up in that way. So humans, I'm putting it in the D tier. Sorry, humans. I can't in good conscience put you higher. Which is gonna be really tough when I have to get to some of the decks that I love, because you guys all know what decks I love there. So let's go through some more here. Okay. We've been doing a lot of talk about combo decks that exist and how hard they are to deal with. Let's talk about creativity here. Indomitable Creativity, a very powerful 4-color list that's set up to turn your tokens into big scary creatures. Like Archon of Cruelty is one of them. You can get a Raph and Mikey. You can get an Emrakul, like the big Emmy that is going to be making you sack your permanents. That one, very scary, because it can play a grindy control game until it combos off, or it can just be like, hey, turn 4, I'm going to combo off. And do you have a way to answer this? Nope. Cool. Here's an Emrakul hitting you, right? So it can kind of go these different routes and different power levels on how it needs to be positioned. Very strong in a very skilled pilot. A lot of these decks that we're going to talk about, though, are set up that way, is that if you're a really good pilot, you can push your deck up even higher. So, like, for example, this human list that we talked about in D tier, that could be easily put in C or even B tier if you have been playing humans for years and know the matchup and know the meta, and you are playing at your LGS and you're like, oh, I know what people are playing. I have very specific silver bullet sideboard cards to help me. You can do that route there, but I think that if we're talking creativity, though, it is definitely an A tier list here. Not S tier yet, glass cannony with the way that you go, okay, I'd like to target these tokens. You go, well, I'll respond and kill these tokens, right? And be able to fight over it. And there's different avenues that you can try to go for once you kind of know how the deck works. So that is definitely one of those moments to kind of keep in mind there. All right, let's go and talk in our third row here of another deck that got hit with a little bit of a ban. We're talking about Amulet Titan. So Amulet Titan did get hit with the kind of land loop ability that it was trying to go for there. They said, no, you're not allowed to do that anymore. You got to kind of play almost traditional Amulet. Amulet's been around for so long, it can't die unless they ban Amulet of Vigor, and they have chosen not to do that, so it's not going to die, right? Amulet will always exist in here. I say that it still has that explosive potential. If you get the right cards and the right hand, you could be able to start going off as quickly as turn 2 and turn 3, right? It is the way that the deck is set up is still strong. You're not doing the land loops, but the deck existed before the land looping necessarily was a thing, right? Your Lotus Field stuff, yeah, you're just doing that faster. Well, we're not. Lotus Field's gone, so we're just gonna have to do this a different way here and just generate even more mana, right? And find a different way to be able to go about it, right? There's the Colossals and things like that. So Amulet's still very powerful deck. I think that we're putting this here in the A tier. It's still an A tier deck, right? Even though it got hit with a ban, it hasn't really fallen down. You might be able to make the argument that it's a B plus at this point in time. Like if we want to separate it out of like decks, but no, I feel like I don't know. I feel like if you're sitting down an Amulet versus a Creativity has an edge, but Amulet could still get a turn 2 win, right? So I don't like being able to put it down with like the living end, because I still feel like there is a difference in power level between some of these combo decks. And you'll kind of notice that this like A tier is going to be a mix of like decks that are trying to police and decks that are trying to combo. That's kind of where we're at here, unless we start to see this kind of edge up in power level and popularity of decks. So let's keep going through things. We've kind of done a mix of like powerful decks, old decks. So let's talk about another powerful deck that is popular and always seems to be popular because of the combo potential, but win rates are always, one of the lowest when it comes to the Pro Tour. Any guesses? It is going to be our Ruby Storm. Ruby Medallion, Ral Zarek trying to cast a bunch of spells and combo off that way. It is good. It's powerful. It's very much disruptible, especially in a world where players are casting silence types effects, and they, when there are more of those types of effects in existence, this deck does worse. When there are less running around, this deck does better. We're in a world where sideboards are just full of silver bullets, and you need that one or two pieces just dedicated to these sort of combo-y decks that exist of trying to do a lot of things in a turn to just slow them down enough for you to be able to get the edge out. And so as long as that's the case, Ruby Storm is not going to be a best deck in the format. I actually am going to put Ruby Storm in the B tier here. It is above Living End, but it's like every time that we see it, it is not going to be anywhere near as powerful as it's supposed to be. All right? It's just going to be, well, I can combo off, and either you got it or you don't. We're in this mode. We've seen it on camera a couple times where, players will help and go, yeah, I know I'm dead here. I'm F6. You've got the stuff. There's a non-zero chance, essentially, that you could fizzle, but I'll help you track your storm until you find the right tools you need. So let's kind of go through the loops together here. So Ruby, you've dropped down to B tier from before. Let's keep going, though. We've got more to talk about. How about some Ponza? All right. Ponza has shifted. Back in the day, it used to be a red-green deck designed about destroying your opponent's land. It has shifted now, and now we are sitting here at a Boros land destruction. A lot of really powerful instants, sorceries, cards to be able to disrupt your opponent's stuff, and you're playing almost like a control element in the way that you are setting about things and controlling the battlefield, not so much people's hands and what they're casting. You're just saying, you're going to have no resources here, and I'm going to be able to try to keep you in check that way. Deck is very slow, very grindy. Your rounds are going to go long, so you kind of have to just be prepared for that to be the case. It is good. It can really disrupt, but it also is like has a really hard time closing out the game. So we are locking that in a nice little solid B tier for that list here. Not much in C. Should we put some C's up there? Is it time? I think it's time. All right, let's go and talk. Let's talk about one of my favorite decks from the past. It's Infect. Infect. We love to see it. Infect's another one of those, like, you can win out of nowhere. You can do cool stuff and just sort of like bop, get people. But again, there's so much removal and so much diversity in how people are removing your creatures. In addition to all of the combo decks that exist, it's so hard because it's like you have the list of decks that are policing the combo decks, which Infect has a hard time with. A lot of players are testing out Sultai Infect and doing things like that. You can still win with Infect. I've won at my LGS with Infect. Other players have picked up the deck and they've gone undefeated with it, right? You see it doing okay online. I know of some players that have won tournaments to help them qualify for like the RC stuff, utilizing Infect, but it is a very tough world to live in if you're running around with this. So I'm putting Infect, sadly, in a C tier. It's better than Humans because of that combo potential that it's got, right? The oops, I win button of being like, yeah, I could win on turn 2. I can win on turn 3. We can go a little bit longer, 4, 5, 6, whatever it might look like. But the Humans doesn't really have that ability to win on turn 2 or turn 3. So we're like edging out in that regard. I wish Infect was better. I guess I'm just going to have to play more Modern 2015 there and just enjoy playing Infect in that error. I guess that's where we're at this point in time for Infect. Sadly, I wish. All right, let's keep going. How about Hammer Time? Shall we talk Hammer Time? Hammer Time, every so often you'll see new tools get printed for it. In like the last few sets, there's been something that players have been like, oh, maybe we should try this. Maybe this is what we need to be doing now. And then they still run into the same problem. There is a card that exists called Wrath of Skies. Wrath of Skies not only kills all of the artifacts that you're trying to set up with, but all the enchantments and all the creatures. Basically, everything that the Hammer Time deck is trying to do, it cannot do. Now, if you're playing against non-white decks, if you're playing at your LGS and there's not a lot of Wrath of Skies running around, maybe it's time to add in some Hammer Time in there and try to get people. You do have that like Infect ability with Inkmoth Nexus, equip a hammer to it, go that route. You know, Jitte got reprinted, or not reprinted, unbanned. Hasn't done anything in Modern. It's perfectly fine. I was really nervous about it like years ago when they were first talking. Like it always had been like talks of it's fine. It like this was of course the pre-Modern Horizon era. Now in the Fire Design era, it doesn't matter. None of it matters. But Hammer Time, it's not swinging. Not swinging around very much. We're dropping it to the D tier. I wish we could put it in the C tier, but it's just not great in this world. It's not like, you know, maybe in a blue-white world where you're doing like the unblockable creature that has hexproof, Invisible Stalker, maybe then, but otherwise it's like that's still slow to get that set up here, right? So I don't know. It's not feeling great in that regard. Okay, how about some prowess? Let's talk prowess. Is it prowess? Very popular, very explosive. One of the, top decks from the Pro Tour. One of the 11 most popular decks played at the event. A decently winning percentage for it as well, right? A lot of these decks are that 49 to 51 percentage point there wise of win rate, and Prowess is no exception to that. The Corey Steelcutter, really great. You kind of have these fluctuations of whether or not you're running and how many you're running on the Slick Shot Show Off. I still like having it in my list, but whatever players are comfortable with, that's kind of where we're at with this. I do think that this is another one of those actually A tier list. Now, I say that because of the speed this deck has. It is very snowbally once it gets going with the Corey Steelcutter elements, and you can just sort of churn through stuff and really go wide and take your opponent out, that a lot of people have a hard time dealing with. So I like that kind of sitting there. It's almost like another one of those, I'm going to police the decks, right? I'm trying to police the aggressive decks like the Prowess, like the Boros Energy. Those are trying to keep these sort of combo decks in check the best that they can up at the top. Okay. Shall we talk about some fun decks still? Keep bouncing. Next row, let's talk about the Jund Cosmogoyf. Jund Cosmogoyf, new deck designed by a couple of the Japanese pros. I want to say there's only 4 of them that brought the list to the Pro Tour. And the deck is super cool. You're utilizing serum powders. You're utilizing your Devourers. And you're going to be basically putting a lot of stuff in exile to make your Cosmogoyf very large. And then you're going to fling it at your opponent's face and just try to take them out. OTK elements. Super fun, super cool. I've tested it out a little bit here. You have to practice with the deck and understand mulligans. It is not a very forgiving deck to pick up without putting in the reps. Like, the first couple times you're going to play it, you're going to lose. You're going to get some great wins, and it's going to feel great, but be prepared to take some L's with it as you kind of learn about the deck and see how it works out. It's cool. I like it a lot. I think it is one of those decks that is going to be sitting here in this like C plus B minus range. It is above Infect just because of, most people are not as prepared against that compared to Infect. They are a lot more prepared against Infect. Even if they hadn't played back in the day, they sort of know, oh, you just have a 1/1 creature? You gonna try to buff it? Okay, I guess I'll just kill it. And we'll do these little battles over it. But okay, what should we do next? How about Blink? Let's talk Blink. Now, there are 4 variants, essentially 3 variants, give or take. You've got your Esper Blink, which is probably one of the most popular ones. You've got your Jeskai Blink. You've got your Azorius Blink, right? Blue-white. There are a couple of other slight variations on how you build each of those Blink versions, but that's the kind of way to think about it. I just sort of clumped them all together into one category for this. We could separate it out, but I do think that the Esper and Jeskai are better than blue-white, but it is what it is. This is going to be set up, though, that it is another very powerful A-tier deck. The Blink list, we talked about the Ephemerate stuff. It's so good, right? Ephemerate with Solitude, Ephemerate with the Riddler, like, draw extra cards, remove more creatures. Yes. All the things I want to be doing. So it helps you against some of these other decks. Let's talk more. How about Lantern Control? Shall we go Lantern? It did just win a league. It did just go 5-0. So it is still a reliable deck that you can be able to see. You have to know how to pilot it. You also have to have opponents that know when they've lost. Similar to kind of the Boros land destruction list, it's one of those that, like, very, very difficult to play online. And if you know what you're doing, well, good on you. I've played it a couple times in paper. Not the current variation, but I am going to be doing some testing on some of those because I like Lantern a lot. But I am saying that Lantern is above these. Now, same sort of thing. You might be going, but you said Hammer Time is D tier, but Lantern is B tier, because of the lockout ability of it. If you go, okay, I lose to Wrath of Skies, my opponent just can't draw Wrath of Skies. I'll filter their draws so they will never draw Wrath of Skies. Perfectly fine, right? You're constantly sitting here and milling and exiling and stopping your opponent from getting any useful tool to be able to stop you. Relying on things like Ensnaring Bridge to sit there and say, you can't even attack me. So you let me know. Whenever you're ready to scoop up and go to game 2, game 3, we can, but you're not going to be able to do anything at this point in time. So I like those ability. It really is right there with the Boros stuff. So, Boros energy, or not Boros energy, Boros land destruction, Ponza, and Lantern control go hand in hand there. How about some Tron? Shall we talk some Tron? So we haven't really talked about any Tron lists yet. Colorless, ramp, where are we feeling? Let's go with colorless first. Or the blue-white, Selesnya. Basically, they're two very similar flavors. One slightly different, right? The colorless one or green-white one. Their whole goal is to be able to utilize the basically toolbox mode of Karn and kind of utilize Ugin and just sort of win that way, right? That's the idea behind it. Super solid, just sort of, hey, we're trying to police the format from the kind of slower mid-rangey decks that are just sort of taking over the field, right? If you're going to be dropping down your like Riddlers and Solitudes and things like that, I'm going to be able to try to keep those in check because of my just exile effects that I get to do, because you're a little bit slower and not able to win as quick as some of these aggressive decks can do, as some of these combo decks can do. So that's kind of where that comes into play. So another solid B tier for our Tron list. It's fine. It does have the potential to win. Tron is one of those that I see solidly being able to be like, oh, it's a 5-0 league. Well, the Tron list went 4-1, right? It almost got there, but just kind of had a bad time against one of these combo decks. Like, it's just right. It's almost, nope. Okay, couldn't get there. Let's talk about the ramp version of it. Sowing Myco Spawn is a little bit of land destruction added in, so it can do a lot of different stuff. But it's also B tier. It's not much different other than its speed to be able to kind of get up and get going a little bit faster. We're still relying on the same sort of top end, utilizing the Ugin, utilizing the kind of exile effects, going that route. They're sort of one and the same, one side of the same coin there. So let's kind of shift on over to how about some blue and black decks, shall we? Let's go and talk a little bit about let's do Death Shadow, shall we? Grixis Death Shadow. I've tried a couple variations of Death Shadow, jamming it in. This is not 2016. This is not 2017. Death Shadow, it doesn't do great in a World of Solitude. Let's be honest. If you're going, I'm trying to lower my life so I can play this Death Shadow. They go, that's great. Oh, and look, here's my Nethergoyf. Like, oh, awesome, cool. Here's my Solitude. I'll get rid of your Nethergoyf. You're going to gain 4 life. Oh, that puts your Death Shadow to a -1 life. Get them out of here, right? Like, it is not a good spot to be in with a Death Shadow player. I wish, but no. No Death Shadow. Death Shadow can hang out in the D tier with decks that from yesteryear with Hammer Time and Humans. Sorry about it. I love me some Death Shadow though, but it is not the time or the place for a Death Shadow list. Moon Shadow. Let's see. Does Moon Shadow do better? There are a couple variations of the Moon Shadow list that have come and gone. It's tried to find some homes. It's tried to find some homes in the Death Shadow. It's tried to find some homes in like the Hollow One list, and it just really hasn't done anything in Modern. Now, Legacy, the Mono Black aggro list with Super Shredder as well, as the Moon Shadow. That's been a pretty cool list to see. But in Modern, we're missing some of those tools, right? The Urza's bobble there being not legal definitely does keep this kind of away from being able to have that cool mono black aggro list. So D tier it is for Death Shadow and Moon Shadow. Sorry, not sorry. Okay, how about some Yawgmoth combo? Yawgmoth combo got a bit of a resurgence with Badger Mole Cub. Badger Mole Cub came out with the Avatar set. We got to see kind of the pop up here of saying, yeah, let's do a lot of really cool stuff. Let's speed up the list a lot more and be able to sort of go a little bit faster. Dredger's Insight, ways to kind of gain infinite life have become a little bit more prevalent for it. And it sort of became a little bit geared like old school Abzan company list of like, I'm just trying to gain infinite life and then I'll figure it out after that. But at least let me get to this point and then I'll do some other stuff. But we got to get that tool figured out first. So it's good. There's a creature that exists that's like, you know, what's that dragon called? Somebody will know. It's 2 and a white for a 3/3 flyer that says creatures, artifacts, and planeswalkers can't activate their abilities. Clarion Conqueror, I think. Maybe. That sounds about right. Clarion Conqueror. But I don't know. There's some, and again, like a Solitude, just saying, oh, I'm going to do Yawgmoth stuff. Well, what if I utilize this Solitude and mess with you a little bit here and stop you during your combo and really put a kind of a stopper on you? Can be a little bit tough. But Yawgmoth is still powerful. Yawgmoth is still able to do put in work and do well. It is a solid B tier, though. Sort of nice middle of the road. Good stuff. Good pilots will do better with it, like we've talked about, being able to win leagues and do things like that. This time around, just, solid stuff. All right, let's kind of keep chopping away at things here. Goryo's Vengeance. I'm trying to learn currently. It was 51% win rate at the Pro Tour. One of the 11 most popular decks at the event. And it's pretty much stock list with the exception of about 4 or 5 flex spots. And I've seen basically up and down lists going, yeah, it doesn't matter what you run in the flex spots. It really doesn't. I saw a list that ran Grand and went 5-0. I saw a list that ran the Riddlers and went 5-0. I saw a list that ran the Archaeologists and went 5-0, right? So it really doesn't matter what you're putting there. That's the cool thing about it. The idea of it, of course, we're trying to reanimate and get back Atraxa, get back Grizzlebrand, and get a bunch of value and just sort of like, okay, now that I've got all these tools, I'm going to be able to just sort of answer. It's got a lot of pivot points that it can kind of shift through and go through there. So very, very powerful. Even if you're like, okay, I'll build in this graveyard hate. Okay, well, I'm just going to hard cast these creatures now. Here's a Solitude that I just hard cast for 5 mana. Here's a Riddler I'm casting for 5 mana, right? And if game goes long enough, I'm casting this Atraxa for 8 mana, right? 7 mana? How much is it? 8? 7. See, I'm learning the deck. I can't remember. Goryo's, though, A tier. In a world that we're not at this point of saying these are the best decks, we don't have an S tier deck, really. It's just like, here are the best decks to go. And you kind of have like A+, right? Goryo's, right? The Blink list, I feel like, are also, if we're doing like A+-y stuff. Here, we'll do some adjustments here. Okay, combo-y stuff. Yeah, very, very good. Very, very powerful stuff. So you have to have some graveyard hate. We talked about the same sort of thing about like you need some hate for certain decks. You need something in your sideboard for graveyards, for living ends, for Goryos, stuff like that. So aggro decks. We talked about how good the Boros Energy is, but Zoo, how good is that? Not as good. Let's be honest. Not as good. Zoo is one of those, again, really good pilots can do very well with it. Your goal is to be able to do that Sign of Draco and be able to kind of use your Kavus. I've tried a couple variation. I tried a reanimation version for a little bit. I had just the regular version. I don't like the list. I don't like the deck. I really don't. Um, it's fine. It's really just like a mid middle of the road, right? It is not that great. It's not. It's fine. It's gonna hang out with the Jund Cosmogoyf, and it's gonna hang out with Infect. It can win, and you will have a good time against certain lists. And then there's gonna be matches where you go, my deck doesn't feel like it can do anything here. I don't have the same reaction and responses that other decks have. I just am sort of playing tap out, but my tap out stuff can be very powerful, but it's not as powerful as like a Tron tap out, right? So it's, I don't know, it does not feel as good. So let's talk control. We haven't really talked any control lists, have we? So I've got miracles on here. I've got blue white control, right? I guess I could have done like a different symbol than just the counter spell. We could have done like let's go with this. Okay. Blue white control here. We're thinking of Supreme Verdicts. We're thinking of Solitudes. We're thinking of being able to have the Icycron Scepter in here. Like that's the shell we're thinking of, right? Those are the tools we're thinking of here. You have to have a good understanding of the meta. You have to have a good understanding of the way the other decks in the meta are trying to win to know how to disrupt it. It's got a lockout ability, right? Like we've talked about with these B tier stuff. But it has a way to sort of keep the other decks in check. So I'm putting in an A tier. It's another one of those policing strategies. Like it is kind of policing the format, even though it's not aggressively policing it. The tools that it has are still good enough to police the format. The miracles. Miracle is a little different. You have to build your deck slightly different than the blue-white control. You need things like the Brain Surge, 3 mana, right? Set yourself up. You might be doing some op stuff. You could even run a Jace. I've run a one of. But it's not the same. It's a delay tactic. It's fun. But this is the better version. So if you're going to try Miracles, have fun with it. Have fun in C tier. It's not the same, right? I feel like there is enough of a gap between the regular, better blue-white control, Icycron Scepter builds compared to the Miracle builds. All right, who's feeling froggy? Shall we talk about the Dimir frogs? Let's talk about some Dimir frogs. Now, the Dimir shells that exist right now are doing pretty good with the tools that it's got, right? If you're doing frog stuff, you're just sort of playing like a Dimir control element with pressure, right? You're running things like Spell Pierce, Spell Snare, right? You're just sort of disrupt. Here's a Thought Seize, right? I find ways to delay, and I'm just slowly building up this frog. I'm putting this like you're running like Murktides, you're running Kaidos, you're doing things like that version of it. Like those are your top ends. I'm putting it separate from the reanimation strategies. So frog in that case is looking really nice as a B tier list. A tier. I like it. If it's kind of like doing same as the blue white control, right? Same. Whereas the Oculus list, which is also utilizing frog, also utilizing some of the tools, is sitting here in a B tier. Again, the ways that you can disrupt it are a little bit easier. If it has a lot of pressure that I can put. I would put it kind of higher up on this B tier, definitely above like some of these other lists. But I also would put this right there with the like Grixis reanimators. Like if your job is to drop in an Archon Oculus and try to reanimate him, that's great. It's very fragile. You can disrupt it. It's going to have a harder time to win. So, but it's still good. it can still win. Archon's really powerful. If you can land one, you're going to have a great time. But if they stop you and you're just left kind of going, well, is my Emperor of Bones gonna be able to get me something? No? Oh, okay. Well, I guess pass turn, right? Like, it's, I don't know. It is what it is. All right, let's talk some more fun decks, shall we? Is it Wizards? Let's talk Is it Wizards. Flame of Anor is one of my favorite cards. One big reason to run Is it Wizards is just to play Flame of Anor. Tamiyo is also really good. I've had some success with Is it Wizards. I think Is it Wizards can be a solid B tier list, depending on what your meta looks like. In a world where players are trying to rely on artifacts and creatures that you can just sort of 1-for-1 them, right? Or 2-for-1 them. If you're like, oh, you have this really powerful artifact and this creature, well, I'm going to deal 5 damage to that and kill that artifact. Or if you're like, well, I have a Tamiyo. I can't tell you how many times I've got to ultimate Tamiyo in my Is it Wizard list because of Flame of Anor. Like, it is very, very fun to be able to do. B tier. B tier. Not good enough to be able to necessarily be at that top with all these other ones, but still solid. If you pilot it, you can kind of do pretty well with the disruption stuff. I think it's better than like the Terminus route if you're going to do like a little bit more control-y, but it's, there. All right. Arclight Phoenix. Let's talk Arclight Phoenix, shall we? It's a fun deck. Any variation you go for. There's kind of 2 routes you can go right now. You can go Is It and utilize that. What's that guy called? Exhibition Tidecaller. I've got like a playset sitting on my desk right now. So that's one route to go. Self-mill, boom, go that route. A little bit of fun cantrippy stuff. Or you can go the Phoenix Dredge list, which is another one that I've been utilizing a bit of. It's fun. It's explosive. Super glass cannon, right? You are very fragile. I think this list is a solid C tier. It is better than these lists. You are going to win more against these kind of decks. You'll do fine against these C tier lists. And then as we keep moving up the rankings here, you're going to have a harder and harder time, especially when these lists have those cards designed to fight over you, right? In a world of surgical extractions and stuff, you're going to have a real bad time. So there is that route. All right, let's keep going through some combo decks. We got a couple more fun decks, combo decks, powerful decks. So let's kind of go through it here. Combo. What are we going to talk? Oh, let's do Necro Dominance here. So Necro Dominance is one of those, like, I'm trying to, draw a bunch of cards, gain some life, drain you, do all that sort of fun stuff with it. There's a couple cool variations with it, like the green-black version of it is cool, but, mono black is all right. It's just basically once we lost Grief and some of those other tools, like, it just sort of never really recovered. So it's again a solid C tier right there with like the Phoenix Dredge. It's going to be a fun deck. You're going to have a ton of fun playing it if that's the one you want to do. But don't go in there and necessarily like the way I view C tier is don't expect to be winning your locals right every time. You have the chance to, but don't expect to, right? Oh, things lined up great. I had great matchups. Awesome. Got the 5-0 there. Got the 4-0, whatever, 3-0, whatever, how many people are going to your event. But, all right. One of my favorite decks, Splinter Twin. Splinter Twin, I wish you were better. I still love my hybrid Is It Wizard / Splinter Twin. So I can't put you in D tier. I refuse to do it. C tier. C-, D+. It's probably right in between it, but I can't put it lower. I'm sorry. All right, let's keep going. Scape Shift here. Scape Shift ebbs and flows. You've got some really cool things you can do with it. It just feels like the weaker version of Amulet, though. Like if you're gonna play a sort of Scape Shifty list, you could play Scape Shift in Amulet. Scape Shift itself is C tier, right? If I'm gonna put Twin there, I have to at least put Scape Shift there. It can win, but again, this is like the D plus C minus route. So, yeah. All right, Rhinos. Cascade Rhinos is back with Violent Outbursts. Nobody really cared, right? Same sort of thing like when things get unbanned. It's like, oh, the meta has moved on. We've learned to adapt to it. There's these cards like Vexing Bauble that exists that people are running a lot of that just goes, that's cute. I don't care. You may not cast that, right? We'll counter it. Like, there's also things like the most popular blue card in the format, Consigned to Memory. So, Cascade. Well, I'll consign that trigger. Nope. That's a cool card you got there that didn't do anything. All right. Rhinos, as much as I want to put it in the B tier, it is going to live right up here next to the Jund Cosmogoyf, next to the Zoo list. It's where it belongs. Just kind of solid. Okay, Kappa. Big man Kappa. Big A tier, right? Just like our aggro deck of Boros Energy, the Is It Affinity list is another one that is very powerful about keeping these other decks in check, because you can go turn 1 Kappa Cannoneer and I'm going to snowball, right? Or I go turn 1, here's a bunch of drones, turn 2 Kappa Cannoneer, right? I can go really wide and just sort of peck you down, and I've got counter magic to back it up, right? Metallic Rebukes and things like that. If you're trying to combo off, I can try to stop you while also being aggressive. I think it's a much better policing the format deck than the Boros Energy is doing right now. It, I believe, got above the Boros Energy in win percentage at the Pro Tour, but I'm not 100% off the top of my head. We'll have to look for that one. So Kappa, definitely A tier in that regard. Neoform, another one that had high win percentage, one that Wizards even had on their radar of decks to watch out for because of how fast you can win with this deck. This is a deck that can win as quickly as turn 2. I mean, I've seen it basically win on turn 1. If you have like the crazy like nuts hand essentially of being like, yeah, I'm well, not really turn 1 because you need essentially 2 mana, but like their first turn essentially, if they had like a Gemstone Cavern or something like that, right? You'd have to have the very right thing to do. It is one of the ultimate glass cannon decks, though. Very fragile because it's going all in on taking this Allosaurus Rider and turning it into a Ghalta, all right, which then will bring out Xenagos or doing some other big scary thing. Here's a Grizzlebrand or whatever, So, super glass cannon, but super powerful, super fast. Living in that A tier with these other powerful decks. I'm going to put it up here again with our combo decks because this clump of combo decks is scary. It is very powerful. So, speaking of combo, shall we take a look at the Basking Brood Scale combo? Yes, very strong. It can go a little bit longer. It's got different avenues because it's like, yeah, I'm playing these combo pieces, right? We just saw it on the channel recently. I think that was last week before. I don't remember now. But we just got to see it being able to utilize different wins. But its idea is, here's a Blade of the Blood Chief with a Basking Brood Scale. I'm going to make infinite colorless mana and try to make this guy ginormous. And feed that colorless mana into like a Walking Ballista or something like that. But it also can just go, I'm going to utilize Glaring Fleshraker and just shred you. Death of 1,000 Cuts. Boom, win that way. Very good, very strong. This one I will put also in the A tier, living with the combo decks. Our A tier is getting big. Oh, Sithis, Enchantress. I wish you were better than you are. If you like grindy, control-y style of decks, this one's a pretty good one. But it is not good enough to really compete with some of the other ones. Sithis, you will live in the D tier. It's cool. You can win some games, but it's not winning a tournament where your opponent is going, here's an Atraxa. Those are some cute enchantments that you've got there. Here's an Emrakul. Those are some cute enchantments, right? It's like, yeah, okay. All right, fine. Oh, Hardened Scales. Hardened Scales is a very cool deck that has fallen lower and lower on the totem pole. Again, same sort of thing with like the Hammer Time style of going, well, Wrath of the Sky is really good. There's a lot of really cool and really powerful removal for artifacts that exist. You can do very explosive wins with it. Because of that, right, can win out of nowhere if you're not prepared. How you manipulate the counters and move things around. It's going to live in this C tier. It can live right next to Twin. You got to hang out together. Okay, Tamashi Belcher. This one at Edge of Eternity Pro Tour had more than one deck in the top 8. It was one of the winningest decks of the event, and has slowly fallen down more and more as these other decks have risen up. It's still strong. The ability to kind of play this sort of control element and have a combo win is really nice, but it really lives in that world, basically mirroring the Ruby Storm list, right? They're both right in there of just sort of like, yeah, we can combo and we can win, but you could disrupt us and stop us. So, yeah, they live there. They can live there. Mill is an interesting one. Mill is also going to be one of those mid-tier lists, and not so much in the C tier. I actually put Mill in this kind of B tier here. All right, our A's and B's are definitely going to become a little bit deeper in the way that we have it set up, but part of it is Tasha's Hideous Laughter, these cards like this that exist that are going to shred a lot of your opponent's stuff. If you're fighting against, like our Basking Brood scale deck, if you're playing against like these Is It Prowess lists, you're going to have a much better time against these low to the ground lists, right? Compared to like, oh, I'm hitting Kappa Cannoneers as stuff. I mean, the Basking Brood scale is, 13 drop Emrakul, but if that's the worst thing that you have to worry about, you might be able to go a little bit faster than them. But also, Basking Brood scale can win turn 3, so maybe not. Sorry, but I still like it positioned in the current meta for things. All right, Heliod combo, Life Gain combo. It's fine. It's one of those just like, so you're an old school combo-y style of deck, right? This is sort of like we'll put our clump of old school combo up here. They can live together. Merfolk. Merfolk ebbs and flows. Depending on who's piloting it, again, they can do very well with it. It's not necessarily the best in the current meta of things. It's not aggressive enough like the Affinity or the Boros Energy to keep decks in check. And it's not as powerful as these B tier lists, but I would put it in a solid C tier, right? It's kind of in that like middle of the road. You're sort of doing the thing, right? Sort of. There we go. Refresh it. Boom. Sort of doing the thing, but not as powerful as other people are. Our food combo decks. Where's food go? Food is another one that is a solid D tier. It's kind of like the Moon Shadow, where there's been a couple variations that have tried to work, and they just are not quite able to compete in the current state of Modern like some of these other decks are. Now, if you have a shop that's got a bunch of decks like this is going to be a very weird, very interesting world to live in. right? Depending on how the shop is. But you still, like, Wrath of Skies is very good against your deck where you're like, I'm just building a bunch of food and doing all these things, and my Asmo is technically a 0 drop. So it's like, well, Wrath of Skies, let's get rid of it, right? Get rid of all the tokens, get rid of all the things that you're doing. Wrath of Skies for 1 and wipe your entire board, everything that you've set up. Similar weakness, just like Hammer Time, right? They're doing basically the same thing. All right, the slipperiest of boys, the Boggles. Boggles, I'm actually going to be putting in the C tier. Boggles is right there with like this effect, Infect, this Merfolk, this Jund Cosmogoyf. Like there's something that it has that edges it out over like the human list. Like the Merfolk edges out over humans because of the ability to run all this counter magic, right? This ward abilities, these things that it can do that is going to help it out. Boggles having hexproof is really, really good against some of these decks that are just like, well, Solitude's my removal, and now it doesn't do anything. We have a player at our shop that runs like a Simic list that runs like a bunch of counter magic and just puts +1 counters instead of doing the enchantment style. There's some cool stuff you can do right now with Boggles, so I like that a lot. All right, a few more to go. We're almost done, so thanks for everyone sticking with us today as we went through our modern tier lists. But we've got Arclight Phoenix, Hollow One coming out here. Hollow One's cool. It is, annoyingly frustrating when you're like, oh, I kept this hand. My opponent turned 1 and were able to make me draw 3 cards and discard 3 cards. And now I've lost 2 of my lands, and now I have a 1-land hand. And my hand just sort of stops. Right? There's some weird things that you can be able to do if you're using Hollow One. Because of that, Hollow One's going to be living right up here in this top stage, above these decks, but it is kind of right over there with this Jund Cosmogoyf of like, yeah, you can win, right? C tiers definitely can win tournaments, but they're not necessarily going to be consistently winning against some of these top tier stuff. All right, Simic Birthing Ritual. Talk about cascade effects. Talk about just sort of snowballing into an Oculus backed up by some counter magic. It's just a very efficient, very fun deck to be able to play, but it's also just not at the same punching power as some of these other lists. It's cool. It's a really fun deck to pilot. I even tried to do the Bant version for a little bit and had fun doing that, but it's just it's going to do better in the hands of certain pilots and worse in others, but it's going to live in the C tier with a lot of these other just sort of like, it's fine, right? It's fine. It does what it does. All right, 2 more decks to go. Last 2, we've got Samwise combo, very similar to like the Yawgmoth combo, very similar to the Asmo stuff. You're kind of like a hybrid version of both those decks and doing sometimes worse version of both of them. You have very quick combos you can do and very specific ones. There were some new tools that got added to the list, but it is living in a world of C tier. I feel like it's right around this, like, I would rather be doing Yawgmoth than the Samwise stuff personally. Not saying it's worse, but it's like Samwise, you're basically like on a 3-color list. Yawgmoth, you're on a 2-color list. So you're just a little bit more efficient and clean at doing the creature-based combo. So I kind of like it in that state for those reasons. But again, still very powerful, very much able to win here. All right, last deck, last one to discuss. Omnath. 4-color elementals has fallen over the years as more and more elementals have gotten the boot out of modern. Turns out evoke elementals are broken. It is what it is. The deck is cool. Deck is powerful. I think it is going to be living in a world that is sitting here with the Cascade Rhinos, with the Zoo, and just sort of top of that tier. This and Zoo go back and forth, I think, of that C tier of what it can do. The ability to have all those elementals is definitely what's pushing it near that top of that list there. But very cool, very powerful stuff. What do you guys think of the tier list? Do you agree with no S tier decks currently in Modern? Do you think that we should be having other decks be positioned in that S tier? Should Goryo, should of course, Big Man Kappa, should Boros Energy still be up there? Do you like all the way that we have these couple decks in D tier? Are there decks that we missed? Let us know. Leave those comments. But that's going to do it for us here today. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching, y'all. Make sure you guys are checking out every Monday and Thursday for more Magic action here on the channel. Of course, sprinkling of content on Saturdays as well. But that's going to do it for us. Thanks for tuning and watching, y'all. And I'll see you all next game.